Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Life by Design podcast. On this week's podcast episode, we welcome back my all-time favourite guest, my girlfriend, Shani Timms. In this episode, Shani and I talk about our 2023 and we talk about our wins and our challenges in relationship, in business, and in personal life also. We talk about our European trip, the biggest challenge in our relationship, my trip to Baby Bathwater, friendships, social media, and much, much more. Enjoy the episode. Ladies and gentlemen, very, very special guest today, Shani Timms. Welcome to your podcast. Me, welcome to my podcast. Something like that.
Other way around.
I got it wrong, didn't I? I got it wrong. You know what I mean.
I know what you mean. So good to be here. Thank you for having me on my own show and your show.
It's weird, isn't it, when we put this both on our shows? Guys, we're back to talk about a year in review. I think we might have only done one podcast last year, did we?
I think we did the year in review last year, and maybe that was it. Maybe it's been a year. How crazy.
It's been a hot minute.
Yeah. I think as the last one we did, we just got back from Thailand, and I think we did like a Thailand summary and a similar structures today, like wins, challenges for both of us in business.
Yeah. So today we're going to do it I think we did win challenge less than last time, but we're going to do it slightly different today. We're going to do win and challenge because it's important for you guys to hear the challenges that we have in our life. Win and challenge in relationship, business, and personal.
Love it.
Shani Timms, we'll kick off with relationship. What's been our win or our biggest wins in 2023?
So I would say the biggest win for us was definitely going over to Europe in the middle of the year and seeing your family. And for me, that was meeting your dad's partner, and your brother and sister over there. So that was really, really special. And I reckon it was just such a key milestone moment for us being over there. And, you know, Europe is not a small feat by any means. And going over and you having your baby bathwater experience over there was just like such a highlight for me as your partner to see, just knowing how hard that you worked to bring that goal to life. And what was it, like 5 years of you wanting this?
5 years, 2018 was when I initially sent the email.
And I just remember you were like a kid waiting to go on school camp, like just you had butterflies. I could just see how excited you were. And that was just such a beautiful highlight for me to just see you, bring one of your biggest dreams to life. So that was probably, would you agree that that's our biggest highlight for us?
Yeah, it'd be that.
Year?
It would be that for sure. I think the other win, which those that follow our social media, we do talk about this a little bit, but just the communication that continues to get stronger and stronger in the way that we connect and communicate feels really good just because nothing's too big. So that would be the other one that really stands out to me. I feel like we talk about it every year and it just continues to be a really big part of our relationship, but gets stronger each year. So that would be the other one that I think stands out.
Because I think that like bringing up even the small stuff just helps so much that it doesn't end up like the big stuff. I know like we've had so many little conversations about certain things and just, you know, it could be like the smallest of detail or the smallest thing that might irk you, and just kind of like bringing that up and voicing it just helps so much. I'm trying to think of any funny ones that we've brought up recently.
Well.
Yeah. Oh.
We spoke about what you would like me to step into.
This is a good exercise.
We're actually going to start the podcast with a little
news segment.
A little news segment, which we forgot about. But we do have news.
Big news coming out of Byron Bay.
Really big news coming out of Byron Bay, Australia.
Should you tell him or should I tell him?
I'll tell him.
Okay, you tell him.
I'll tell him. I've taken up barbecuing.
Watch out,
and
world.
It was at the request of Shani because late last year I was like, babe, how can I step into like being more of a man, more masculine? And she was it was almost like you'd thought about it, which is interesting, but you were very quick to jump on two things. You're like, I'd love to see you make food via the barbecue, which we didn't have one at the time. God bless Father Christmas. Father Christmas came through with a barbecue this year.
AKA me.
AKA Shani. And the second one was becoming more handy as a handyman, which we'll do one at a time. But we've started with barbecuing. So that is just a little thing, which
Yeah.
I think all of these little things add up. Like at the end of the day, I would like you for the rest of your life to be attracted, interested, find me attractive, find me desirable, and all of these little things add up. Whether you like it or not, people, there are things. Like I probably 3 or 4 times a year I'd ask Shani, like,
Yeah.
what are the 3 most attractive and 3 least attractive things I'm rocking with at the moment? And it might be clothes, it might be a behavior. They all add up.
Remember that fun game that we played at the start of our relationship and we said, okay, we each get to pick 3 items of clothing to throw out. I can't remember if we've spoken about this on the podcast before, but it was kind of like getting rid of like the icks in clothing items. Like, you know, when you start like dating, you wouldn't know this, but the listeners might. But when you start dating a guy and he's got like that ugly Velcro wallet that's like rips apart, or he's got like these weird skate shoes or like some sort of icky belt, and you're like, that's a bit of an ick for me. That we did at the start of our relationship. So I think for you had like a pair of Adidas shoes, which I was like, they are going. They are just old man shoes trying to be cool. Sorry. But you got rid of them. And I think I had a pair.
The Velcro wallet went as well.
You did not have a Velcro
Guys,
wallet.
I didn't have one. Shout out to my homeboys out there still rocking the Velcro wallet.
Yeah, it's time to grow up.
Not much sex happening in your life. Get rid of it, my friend. Get rid of it.
I love it. I don't know how we got there, but that was the little things.
The little things.
Yeah, it is.
Now, to caveat that, one of the big things and the big challenges is something that we'd spoken of so many times before. And it was a little niggle that kind of came up early in the year. And despite talking about it, we just couldn't shift it. And shout out to one of our therapists who we did an MDMA therapy session with. And off the back of that chat with him, we were able just to let go of it. In particular, me, I was the one kind of struggling to let go of it. And it was like we'd spoken about it and understood it on a mental and a physical level, but from an energetics and a emotional point of view, just weren't able to let go of it, in particular me. So that would be our challenge. And it's just like this, it's like a pebble in your shoe. And I'm sure most relationships can attest to something of this sort. Could be big, could be small, but just not being able to move through it. And in our relationship, I feel generally speaking, we are excellent at communicating. And for that reason, we do move through most things. And from what I've seen from a coaching point of view, most people don't have the communication and therefore the pebble continues. But we had spoken about it. We were very clear on it. We just couldn't, me in particular, couldn't let go of it. So that would be the biggest challenge amongst our relationship this year.
But it was awesome just to see how we kind of like sprung back from that. It was almost just like I could feel the exact moment in the session where my body just let go of the whole thing. And I was just like, oh, like this isn't a thing anymore. And I remember like we went for a walk and a beach swim after the session, and I like looked at you and I was like, you look so different. Like you look taller, you look, you know, like you're holding yourself. I feel like you're holding me more, like from a kind of masculine like presence and energy. And it was just so cool just to see like how powerful and potent like one session can be that can literally clear out so much kind of like underlying residue.
And just to reinforce that for you guys, whether you're doing MDMA therapy as a couple or not, I highly suggest it, but each their own. But just that type of, like really any type of therapy or any deep diving into your relationship, like things change in a moment. And that was literally, you know, an MDMA therapy session goes for between 3.5 and 5.5 hours. So it was literally 5.5 hours later that I felt new. And there was obviously, you know, off the back of what Shani just said, there was a new presence and a new energy and a new way that I was holding myself. It was like a backpack that I'd carried for 8 months that was subtle enough, but there the whole time. Some people are carrying big backpacks that are full of rocks and there's just, you're carrying heavy shit around. Like it didn't feel massively heavy. Early in the year, it felt heavy and then it just kind of lingered. And it's just this backpack, this 5 kilo backpack that I was carrying around and just slowly chipping away at my soul. And I would say that most people with stuff that they haven't moved through, spoken about, communicated, are carrying that. So that'd be our challenge, which also quickly became a win as soon as I was able to let go of it.
Love it.
Win and challenge from business. Your win first up.
Are we going to go one for one, or are we going to go how you want to run it? So we'll go like business win and then you go one?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Let's do that.
So I would say my biggest biz win for the year was having my biggest month. I remember like literally like the day before we got to Barcelona, and anyone who doesn't know, Barcelona is a big place for me. It was where I was meant to move in 2020 before COVID hit and start my new life there, and then got, redirected by the universe to Byron. So coming back to Barcelona and figuring out that I'd have my biggest month, like the night before we went to Barcelona, was huge. I remember like writing an email to my email list, and I just tallied up like, okay, had I made it? Yes, I had. And I was just crying, like tears streaming down my face just of happiness. But it wasn't just about like the number or, all of that. It was like, oh, when you actually surrender to the universe, when you surrender to a greater plan than you, shit works out so much better than you could have ever imagined. Like my thing was like, okay, I'm going to move to Barcelona and that's going to be it. That's going to be my life. But like being redirected to living in Byron, meeting you, starting my dream business, getting to travel the world, meeting the most incredible community in Byron. Like I just could never have dreamed that up in my head. So it was really like this kind of like full circle moment where I thought, I wonder if I surrender a little more in life. I wonder if I let loose of the reins and like sit loose in my saddle, what more magic can come my way. So that was kind of like definitely biggest biz win, but then also like a full circle, like amazing, culmination event as well for me.
It was good. It was really good. Just for all of that Europe just ran really smoothly for both of us. For those that are kind of new to our world, we did Thailand late last year for 6 weeks. And Thailand was a bit smoother, but not a huge amount, but for obvious reasons. Like we stayed put a little bit longer in each location. I think it's kind of almost just under 2 weeks.
2 weeks in each
across
islands.
the different islands. And then obviously the time zone difference wasn't a massive factor. So the only things that really made this European trip a bit harder was obviously time zones, like big difference. And just the fact that we were jumping around a little bit more. But we are doing Bali this year for a month. And again, it'll be even smoother, I assume, than Thailand. I mean, you never know. But like,
you actually never know.
You never know.
We can say that.
I really shouldn't have said that. He's knocking on wood right now.
Just touch wood.
He's knocking on wood. But our fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Bali. Biggest win. There'd be 2 big wins. Although the second win is probably the challenge as well. So I'll put those in together. The first big win and the best 5 days of my life would be Baby Bathwater. And for those that don't know, it's hard to describe, but it's like an event mixed with a retreat, mixed with a party, mixed with a mastermind. And as Shani said earlier, I first reached out to the guys in 2018 because I've just been frothing it, which I tried to keep a lid on things. I was like, just play it down, with 5 years of build up because you don't want to be let down. And I really struggled. Like I think it was the morning of, wasn't it? I went for a run and I just started crying. We were in Croatia and I was just like, fuck, it would have been weird for people to see me like running and crying at the same time. But it was obviously so exciting to get to be there, like in Croatia, going to this event. And also, I think it was also, those tears were also like a proud moment that I'd got there 5 years later. For those that don't know, in 2018, I filed for bankruptcy. So naturally that wasn't the right time to go. 2019, I was on my knees, just like trying to survive. And then 2020 kicked, 21, 22, and then finally 23. So to be there with somewhere between 150 and 200 entrepreneurs, mainly 7, 8, 9, and I think a couple of 10 figures. So we're talking big dogs.
That one was me.
The 10 figure was actually Shani.
I'm kidding. No,
we haven't mentioned that.
Surprise.
It was unbelievable. Like it's really hard to find words other than, for me, it felt like Disneyland for adults. And, I'm still in touch with so many of them. So many of them have been on my podcast and will come out. Episodes I've already recorded will come out later this year. Like just the most unbelievable 5 days. And at different stages along this kind of journey of business and the way that I do life, I've definitely found periods of loneliness, and I continue, with each leveling up, I do find this almost like this loneliness gap of like finding new people that are at that new level. And being at Baby Bathwater almost just gave me confirmation that I'm not as crazy as I think I am sometimes, and I'm not as alone in the way that I think, the way that I do life, the standards that I set for myself, the effort that I put in. In some of the circles I've been in, people might question the way I do life, might question the amount of time, energy, money, resources I put to personal development. And then I find myself in those circles and they're like, fuck, same. I also spend X amount on personal development, healing, psychedelics, etc. So it was a real, I felt at home is probably the best way to describe it. And it lived up to expectations, which is always, as I said earlier, quite a tricky thing to do, to put expectations around something, because often you feel let down. And I was really mindful of that, but it lived up to expectations.
I want to pull on that thread of expectations, because I'd imagine like when you're heading to an event like that with, up to 10-figure, business owners, like what was your expectations of the guests there versus like the reality of them? My
expectation was, even though I know the owners of the business, Ferg and Hollis, who are really cruisy dudes. Hollis, some of you guys might have heard of my podcast. I spoke to him earlier. My initial thought, and a lot of people I assume will resonate with this, was like imposter syndrome of who am I to be around 7, 8, 9, 10-figure business owners. And I think even though Hollis and Ferg are real chilled, I didn't expect, I thought with, more income or more success came a stiffer type of person. And for most of my life, adult life, because I've been running my own business for 20 years, that has been a very common thread amongst different events and masterminds that I've been to. There's been this real like stiff corporate feel, and I've never felt right. So there was a little bit of hesitation of like, do I have to kind of show up as someone who's a little bit more proper and a little bit more put together than I really am? Which at the core of it's just some bogan from Australia. But within an hour of being there, I was like, oh, these people aren't like that, which is what drew me initially to Baby Bathwater. But when you're not at the event, you obviously only get, a bit of an insight as to what it could look and feel like. But exactly as they position it and exactly as they market it was exactly how it was in the end. So the imposter wore off pretty quickly. And in terms of what that shifts on a cellular level, I wouldn't be able to speak exactly to it. You might even be able to see, a difference in the before and after. But I guess really at the end of the day, I feel more that I can hold my own from a business point of view and absolutely hold my own from a coaching point of view in terms of coaching 7, 8, 9, 10-figure business owners, whether it's on relationships, connection, limiting beliefs, whatever it might be. So it was really good to overcome my own stories by putting myself in that environment, which, I highly encourage anyone to put themselves in a really challenging environment. And, at the end of the day, it cost me $25,000, give or take, to put myself in that environment and experience it. And, I do it 100 times over, now that I'm out the other side of it.
I love it. So good.
Beautiful. Thanks,
beautiful.
Challenge of 2023 when it comes to business.
To biz. I think this one's really been like a ponderer, I think I did like a end of year reflection and review, and like I had so many amazing things happen in life biz this year, but then also had some really hectic, shitty things happen as well. And I would say that the biggest challenge was like the duality and like holding both. Like a friend and one of my podcast guests, Tracy Spencer, she calls it holding the lit and the shit. And it really was that. Like I remember, so many times in the year where I was having like my, best month in business, but like I had friendships like, ghosting me and crumbling and all of the things. And then I won't go into the details, but like a tricky client situation. And I ended up getting served and then like that same morning, I found out that she was, messaging my clients and pretty much just defaming me and my business. And then that same morning, I was getting all these people sharing my podcast and, saying that I was their number one, their number one for the year. And like, I had so many amazing clients reaching out that day. And I remember like being keeled over the kitchen bench, like crying, but then also laughing, and just like, I could just feel my brain split of being like, wow, I really can hold like the hardest experience in my business and also like the best experience in my business. And it's okay to hold both. Like, it doesn't mean anything about me. And I just think that in itself is just so powerful, especially when we want to go on and lead these incredible businesses. It's not always going to be sunshine, rainbows, and butterflies. And it's not all going to be like thunderstorms and lightning and, towers crashing down. We can hold both, and like it's completely safe for us to as well. So yeah, I think my biggest challenge was definitely like holding the lid in the shit, as Trace would say.
One thing you said there that shouldn't be underestimated, and I feel like a lot of people in our world, we have so many coaches and therapists and healers in our world, and just business owners, I guess, as well, is you don't make it mean something about you. And that's quite a challenging thing for a lot of people. Like, business is flying. Okay, I'm good. I'm worthy. I'm confident and whatever. Business is struggling. I'm not worth it. I don't deserve it. All that. So when you can really separate your business from your sense of self, then it can be a slightly less
tumultuous journey,
thunderstorm and roller coaster for you. So that is a process that takes a bit of time. But when you get to that place, you can kind of balance yourself out a little bit better as well.
And I don't even think that I'm fully at that place now. I think when you run a heart and soul-led business and it's a personal brand, like it's like, how can you not take things, personally? But I think it's just like over time, each situation that happens, each thing that unfolds, you start to realize, okay, this is like a 0.1% of my whole entire business. Like I could have my whole entire lens and focus in on that, or I could just be like, okay, this is happening. Let me like shift my lens and focus on all the amazing stuff that's going on as well. Because, I think the more that I would speak about what happened this year and, like the client situation and the potential law case and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, this isn't an isolated incident. This is so many business owners go through this. Not a lot of businesses speak about it because there's a bit of shame, or it's like, oh, it must mean I'm a bad person if this happens. And I'm like, no, there's crazy clients out there. We're always going to, attract in certain situations to help us level up. And it doesn't technically mean a bad thing. I think off the back of this situation, I had an amazing gift that was given, and it was a whole redirection in my business. And that's still playing out now. And I'm, in hindsight, I'm grateful for this situation because I can see what it gave me. And when anything shit happens in my business, I'm like, okay, what's it trying to teach me? How's it trying to up level me? Where's it trying to redirect me to? Like, it doesn't always mean doom and gloom. It's a bad thing.
What I will have many of you remember or know is that apparently, based on statistics, there's 1% of the population that are psychopaths. So just something to kind of keep in mind in case you attract one.
Run into one.
If you run into one. Fingers crossed you don't.
Yeah.
My biggest challenge would be, I had it as a challenge and a win. And it's something that we've both experienced this year. I kind of experienced mid-year. You've, in more recent times, gone through this. And that is the letting go of 80% of your business in order to 10x your business. Mid-year, when we're in Europe, I read a book called 10X is Easier Than 2X by Benjamin Hardy, and Shani's read it as well. And to really simplify it, one of the theory of their book is, in order to 10X your business, you need to let go of 80%, double down on the 20%, and then 10 times that, e.g. 10 times the top 20% of your clientele or business or whatever's working. So in order to do that, it really kind of requires balls of steel. And I'm glad that both of us have done it. And it's kind of cool that we've been able to stay pretty neutral in that transition. But for me, that meant letting go of momentum and tribe in particular. And again, easier now, kind of coming out the other side, but to back yourself in to cut 80% of what no longer serves you requires a lot of kind of yeah, I guess jumping in the deep end. And for that reason, a lot of people won't do it. But yeah, it was challenging, but at the same time, I'd almost put it into a win category as well. So
Yeah.
that was mine.
It kind of comes back to that like sunk cost fallacy, right? It's like people hold on to something because they're like, oh, I've invested time, money, resources, energy. I must keep going with this because like I don't want to throw this all away. But I love that we both think this way of like, well, we could throw this away, but for the like, what does this open us up to? If we remove the 80%, what does this now open us up to, whether it's more aligned clients or, more income coming through or a more aligned offering. I always come back to that sunk cost fallacy because I just think it can be such a trap for so many business owners.
Love it, babe. And personal win and personal challenge.
I would say, well, I don't know if many people know this about us, but we're kind of in the pre-baby portal. So looking to call in our beautiful little spirit baby this year and how that wants to unfold. And so for me, stepping into this kind of like a win and challenge wrapped, but me stepping into motherhood, I had a lot come up around like, who does this make me if I don't have my business, if I don't have, like my looks, if I don't have all of this stuff that I have pinned so much to like what I thought made me me. And so it was this real like kind of like letting go of everything that I thought made me me and coming back to like, hold on, just in my essence alone, I'm worthy and like I'm okay and I'm whole. And like I've always been like career driven, like aspiring, all of the things. And I've never been one to be like, it's my main goal in life to be a mum. That just it's not me. It's not how I operate. But it doesn't mean I don't want to be a mum. I really do want to be a mum, but I think for me, it was kind of this juggle of being like, if I'm a mum, does that mean I have to let go of everything that I thought made me me? So I went on this journey with beautiful Ange Jessup, and we did a kinesiology journey over 5 months. And we really started to like unpack and peel back all the layers of like, okay, like why do I think that I can't have the business and motherhood? Why do I think that I have to lose it all in order to be a mum? So it's kind of like stripping all of it away, but then also like rebuilding like what I want my motherhood to be and what I want this journey to be. And I know that, we can do all the work that we want on the outskirts of stepping from maiden to mother. It's never going to prepare us fully, but I just wanted to make sure that I was coming in with like a clean, neutral energy and an energy of like being excited for this baby, not, oh my God, what is this going to take away from my life? So it really was this whole like death maiden, into motherhood, which like coming out of it, I remember session 1 with Ange, I just burst into tears because I was just like, I didn't even know how much shit I'm carrying about becoming a mom, and like I'm scared and I don't know what's going on, and all of this shit came up and I didn't even know it was there. Well, I think I knew it was there, but just on like a very deep level. And then the last session I had with Ange, I just looked at her and I was like, I think I'm ready, to be a mum. And like that was just such a big thing to say, and just to get excited about, moving into parenthood and everything. And yeah, so that was just a really, really big win for me, and something that, I've never worked on this level of work before. So yeah, I'm excited about where this is really going to take our family and us and me as a human as well.
So before you went on this journey with Ange, shout out to Ange, who's
I know, she's the best.
Epic human. When I spoke about parenthood and family and stuff, I felt resistance. And for that reason, we kind of opened the conversation around you doing some stuff around motherhood. Do you remember feeling the resistance, and do you remember what story you made it mean before you opened the can of worms and found out what it really meant?
I think I really thought I should want this more than I do. Like I see so many, incredible women out there really struggling to have babies and wanting it more than anything in the world. And then I'm here being like, I don't know what our journey will be, but being like, okay, well, I do want this, but I don't really, like, I don't want it so bad that I would give anything for it. And I think I just fall into that should category of like, I should want this more than I do. Like, does that mean something's wrong with me? And I had so many beautiful friends have amazing, successful careers and then, step into motherhood and they continue that. So it was kind of like just challenging my own beliefs about like what I thought motherhood would be, or what did motherhood mean on another level for me. So yeah, it was quite, I think it just made me turn everything upside down, which is a great thing to do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, we are so lucky to have like a ridiculous number of kids around us these days and be able to witness so many different schools of thought when it comes to parenthood and motherhood and fatherhood and everything. And we're not under any illusion or delusion that we've got it all sorted. I think anyone who thinks that pre-baby is in for a rough ride, but it has really been awesome over the last 12 months to do what we can to prepare us as well as possible. And at the end of the day, we've probably got another 12 months before it actually happens. And just doing things like what Shani did, and, you know, something that's been really big for me over the last, I think it was 18 months, maybe even earlier, that I mentioned this idea to Shani. I had this idea and I don't even know where it came from, but this idea of like taking 9 sets of parents out that we really admire how they do their parenting over the 9 months that Shani's pregnant, taking them out for dinner and just getting their thoughts. And at the end of the day, we'll form our own anyway, but just, you know, parents that we like, the way they do parenting, their style, and just ask some questions, get their thoughts. But it's an interesting one. I don't know if I know of anyone who has given it as much thought as we have prep.
We could just like be waiting to get our asses handed to us.
And at the end of the day, we are still going to get an absolute initiation of sorts.
Yeah, but as you do. And I always think like we never shy away from the work. So I'm like, this is just another form of work in another way.
Looking forward to it. I'd be
interested to hear like, and I know, but I think it'd be interesting for the listeners, like what came up for you as you're kind of stepping in this pre-fatherhood bubble?
A lot. And there's still plenty of work that I want to do with Ange in particular this year. For a number of reasons, Ange is just amazing, but also because Shani's worked with Ange from her side of things. I think my biggest fear is just not showing up as the role model and the masculine and the father that our kid or our kids deserve and need. And I am very grateful for my dad, albeit, you know, him and mum parted ways when I was 2, so he wasn't really there. And, you know, we've formed a much stronger relationship in, you know, the last kind of 5 years than the previous 35. And my stepdad and I did not see eye to eye at all. And there was a lot of chaos and violence and stuff there. So I just want to be there and really, you know, at the end of the day, you know, I've said this to you before numerous times, like nothing for me is more important than a safe home. And, you know, I think a big part of the work that I do, you know, there's so many underlying reasons why I do so much healing and therapy and coaching and personal development. But I think a big part of that is really that I want to, you know, minimize the negative impact that I have on kids. And, you know, and none of us are going to get out of here without having, you know, leaving some kind of trauma and scars on them. But life can be a lot easier for them if we really create a trusting and safe home. And it's you know, I think if I look back to my upbringing, that's, you know, nothing else mattered. And it's the one thing that I always wanted that I didn't get was, you know, at the end of the day, you can have the roughest day you've ever had, but if you go home to a trusting and safe home where you can lay your head on the pillow at night and feel safe, then, you know, you'll always be good. So that's really the core of it is being there for our kids and creating a, you know, a trusting and safe place. And yeah, I mean, it's as simple as that. And there'll be other things that come up, and, you know, no doubt some of my, you know, wounds will come up that I won't know about until we have kids. And then it's just about doing the work and healing those parts of me that I haven't seen for decades, you know, when we're under the test of kids as well. So, yeah, that's really the core of it.
Well, can I just say, I would say once a week, someone says to me, Blake is just going to be the best dad. And I fully agree.
I appreciate that. We'll see. We'll see when it actually comes to it. What are we? Win personal.
Yeah, that's
so. In 2022, I had a word which was connection, and I did a huge amount of work. Shout out to Pixie, who half of Australia knows because we send half of Australia to her. So I worked with her every week, and the majority of them, 40 out of 50 would have been on connection. And it's interesting for most of us when we see a recurring pattern that somehow we don't take responsibility for it, as when we're trying to work out who the common denominator is. But it finally landed for me that I was the common denominator in all these connections.
God damn it.
God damn it. Why'd it take so long? So I spent, most of 2022 on that. And things started to shift in 2022, but it really landed in 2023. And I just feel so fortunate with the people that are in my world, that have come into my world. Like many of the people that we've really grown close to as a couple have only really been in our world for 12 to 18 months. Like, it's wild to think. And I've never felt better when it comes to friendships. And there's this really interesting stat that I first got from a guy called Max Dickens. I had it on the podcast, I think in episode somewhere in the 20s. And he was talking about blokes in particular, their friendships post 30 years of age literally fall off a cliff. And if you're not, generally speaking, blokes' friendships after 30 are a byproduct of the girlfriends, husbands, or partners. Like it's all interlinked through the girlfriends. They're the ones that create connection, hold things together. And if it wasn't for your girlfriend or your wife, you'd be fucked with no friends. And I find myself going in a very different direction. I've never felt stronger from a friendship point of view. I've never had better friendships. And while loneliness is a very big thing that I've experienced at different times, it's becoming less and less of a thing. And I just feel so grateful. And, Shani and I will often talk about this. So grateful for the people that have come into our world. And it just fucking lights me up. Like, at the end of the day, humans are here to connect. And, there was just layers and layers and layers of my stuff. And I don't think that it's 100% healed and whole by any means. But when you spend 3/4 of a year on it and just find new layers, it continues to fall away. So connection and I guess community on a grander scale would be the win for me in 2023.
Yeah. I mean, I can't believe we're 2024 now. I know. Just like crazy.
I know. Personal challenge for you.
I would say this last year was huge for me in friendships as well. I feel like you'd kind of done all your work in friendships and I was kind of like going balls deep into mine. And I am that friend who I am showing up and I'm, like giving my all and I'm there for you when you need. And I'm like a real giver in friendships. And I really started to notice a pattern that I was giving more and more to the friends who were giving the least to me. And I know it's not always a reciprocity thing and friendships go through cycles. But I did start to see clear patterns of like, okay, I am like giving and being there and all of the things and putting the energy and the effort, and with people who really kind of weren't even meeting me halfway. And I remember throughout the year, I had some really big conversations with some friends, and it was big for me because I've never been one to kind of put myself first in friendships. But I'm really doing this thing, for the past year where I'm really speaking from the heart. And no matter how tough the conversation is, I want to lean into it. And I know that the friends who are going to be, ride or die lifelong are going to meet me there. And the ones who aren't, that's fine. It's probably going to drift away. But it's kind of funny when you move to a new town because you don't have the security blanket of like all of your lifelong friends there and, the friends you've known for 20 years. You're meeting people for the first time. And it's kind of felt like all of my like primary school friendship stuff came up again, like being left out and, like having my best friends become best friends and then be on the outer. And it really brought up a lot for me to work on. And really like last year was such a gift in friendship because through me having the hard conversations and putting my heart on the line, I had friendships melt away and drift away and not a word from them said. But then I also had the friendships who are meant to sort of carry on, go deeper. And it was kind of like the pool got smaller, but we went on a deeper level together. So yeah, I I'm really proud in myself in having those tough conversations and really seeing like the shadow side of where I wasn't being a good friend, or where I was, perhaps coming from a place of codependency, or coming from a place of like, old people pleaser traits coming up. And it was really, really beautiful to have, amazing friends reflect stuff back to me that I hadn't seen. And it was just like getting this mirror, shown to me that I could really, really step up and be a better friend. So it was a really tough year in friendship, but then also like a beautiful year in like really, really upping my self-worth and like backing myself in and knowing what I deserve in friendships, and letting things slide if it's not willing to meet me halfway.
I don't know if anyone else has experienced this, but and maybe it's a male thing, I don't know, but like it's so hard to witness someone like you putting the time, energy, effort, love into friendships, and then just in some of those not have it reciprocated. Like it's heartbreaking to sit on the sidelines and just watch that. Like I go into rage and I try to be empathetic and whatever, but like I can't have, and who knows, with my own development and healing, I might be able to kind of sit in a more heart-centered place with it. But it is so hard to witness, like at the end of the day, and this might come across a certain way, but whatever, like there's people that don't deserve people like you. And that's, that's just how I see it now. But it's heartbreaking to just see how good a friend you are and the way that you show up, and then just sloppiness from other people. I've experienced it once before with a girlfriend kind of 15 years ago. She had the same thing, and like it breaks your heart to see some of that. So I found that really hard.
I broke I remember like calling you were on retreat, and I was like in hysterics, and I'm like, I don't think I've cried like that, since freaking primary school. And it did feel like all these inner child wounds were coming up. But like, I'm not a perfect friend by any means, but I'm like, I will fucking forget your birthday, but I will be there when it really, really counts and when it really matters. But it was such a big lesson in me, and just being discerning with who gets access to my energy, who gets access to my friendships. It's like, it doesn't have to be everyone, So it was really like this like closing of the loop of like primary school inner child patterns.
And it's amazing, I've said this publicly before, but like it was amazing to witness. I think of all the things that I've learned from you, and the list is so long. That would be one of the strongest and most admirable traits that I've learned from you, is your ability to, and I know that required a new level from you to step up and step into those conversations. But prior to seeing you do that so well, I was more than happy just to let relationships kind of fall by the wayside and not open myself up to being vulnerable and at least having the conversation. And off the back of witnessing you do it so well, and just with such compassion and empathy and curiosity, the last day of Europe, I reached out to like 10 people I just had like underlying tension with, and did the same thing. And it was probably one of the biggest days of anxiety I've ever had in my life.
Huge for you.
Fucking massive. But the overall general response was pretty good. I think of the 10 people, 7 were really good. 2 I didn't hear from. 1 found a way to kind of spin my words. But like, you just don't know what you're going to get when you put your heart on your sleeve and say, this is what I'm looking for from a friendship. This is where I'm at. This is what's coming up for me. And some people won't like it. Like, there was a former really good friend who I just didn't hear from, and I said, this is kind of what's coming up for me in this friendship. This is where I want to go with the friendship. And that was, 6 months ago, and I haven't heard from him since. Yeah. And that's the risk that you run with, being vulnerable and opening yourself up. And
isn't it like fucking epic, because it weans out the people who are there for you, and like the people who are like rock solid, and the people who aren't. Like a true friend isn't going to like, not respond and just like, melt away into the background and just never get back to you. Like a true friend's going to meet you there and be like, okay, cool. Like, let's have this chat. Like, even no matter how hard it is. And like some of those chats are fucking really hard, but it's like, to have them, it just springboards you to a new level of like trust and a new level of like depth in the friendship that couldn't have been met before when there's this underlying residue or, you know, energy that hasn't been sort of addressed.
Well, you just shouldn't have to overthink how you feel in a true relationship. Like, you shouldn't have to filter that. At the end of the day, how you feel should be spoken of freely. And that was, you know, off the back of that really testing time for you, we made a bit of a pact in the way that we wanted to bring about friendships. And, you know, a couple of things that really stood out to us was we don't want to have to think twice about our friendships. You know, like, if there's a problem, come and speak about it. You know, otherwise we'll just assume everything's good. Like, we don't want to have to second guess our friendships. And the other one was that we just want to speak freely as to where we're at and what's going on for us. And, you know, outside of that, we're pretty kind of open to relationships and friendships. But that really, you know, those two things became a catalyst and an expectation and a standard that we uphold for our friendships. And in the last 6 months in particular, you know, a lot has strengthened once we kind of set the bar. So, yeah, that was obviously a super challenging time for you, and you're better for it.
What was your challenge?
Some people who follow me on social media won't be surprised by this one. But my challenge was, and has been for a couple of years now, how I showed up on social media. And it's been a work in progress, and it continues to be a work in progress, and I don't feel like I'm at the core of it. But most of my friction and most of the tension in my life comes by how I show up on social media. And it really, it's kind of been underlined, I think, ever since social media began, but it really like caused a storm through COVID. And those that know me know my stance on what was happening. And how I went about it was horrible. It really just created friction and like anarchy, and there was just shit everywhere. If I had my time again, I'd love to have more grace and humility in speaking my truth, but a lesson has been learned. But it continues to linger, albeit has been progressing in the right direction over the last, I'd say 6 months in particular, but that would be the biggest challenge for me. And in our recent MDMA therapy session with our coach, we touched on it briefly, and I'm going back in to do another session with him on it. But it really just feels like I don't know what's at the core of it, and it's a blind spot and shadow for me. Someone might be able to go, hey, it's this. But like, it feels, I mean, to simplify it, it feels like I put armor on when I go into bat or into battle or into war when it comes to social media. And it doesn't have to be that way. And I don't know where it stems from. But the reality for me is that, you know, time and time again, Shani said it, you know, many of my good girlfriends have said it, many of my good guy friends have said it. It's like, I don't understand why the version of you in person, which is a kinder, more open-hearted, more compassionate version, doesn't translate across to your social media. And again, to simplify it, I don't have the answer at this stage, other than it feels like I armor up and put armor on when I go into battle on social media.
My favorite analogy was when someone's like, it feels like we're going into the locker room, middle of the game, and you're there like Coach Blake, like about to like rip into everyone. And you're like, Blake, it's like 6 a.m. I don't need this. Yeah,
that's how it is. And and on that day, that's Anthea Todd. Shout out to Anthea Todd. She gave me that good feedback.
Shout out.
That day, you, Anthea, Megan, and I reckon it was SJ, all four of you gave me something of that sort. E.g., it's like this, I don't know if aggressive is the right word, but it's like this over-the-top Coach Blake, like almost, and not even yelling, but like that type of energy. Talking at.
Yeah.
And I just don't do that in person ever.
I know. I've never seen you in person do that.
Nah.
But I think like because you did have your PT days, like it feels like your PT Blake fucking ripping into people, shredding into people. It feels like that energy.
Yeah.
Not anymore though, you know.
It's a work in progress. I'll let you know when I feel fully cleared. But that would be the challenge in my world. And that's us. That's our summary.
Can I just say on that, like whenever you get feedback, you take feedback so well. I remember you were asking everyone, okay, like how could I do this better? And you got all this feedback from everyone. And I remember we're going for our walks and you're like, okay, let me like talk out this post or this story. And you would talk it out in a different way. And I'm like, okay, come from like a solutions orientated way, or like share a story, but with a solution. And you would just go like, round after round of just like repeating yourself and just tweaking it every time. So I think like people, when they're from the outside, they might see the change, but they don't actually know like what went into bringing the change to life. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah. And it runs deep. And I kind of want you guys to remember that as well, I guess, is like some things just change in a moment and some things run deep in your DNA that are going to take a little bit more time and a bit more time to kind of embody. And, you know, even all the stuff that Shani and I kind of work through collectively and individually, you know, there's a couple of most things we're able to move through really quickly. And then there's a couple of big juicy bits that take a bit more time as well. So just something to be mindful of as you kind of create change.
Love it.
Guys, that's 2023 year in review. I have no idea when the two of us will speak next. Definitely do a year in review, but I would say
this
more
is
likely
fun.
that it will happen more frequently in 2024.
Also, if you want us to do a podcast on anything, let us know.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hit us up.
Give us ideas.
Slide into the DMs.
Yeah. Love it.
Beautiful.
Love it. Thank you for
Peace.
having me.
Bye.